is one of the biggest things that's keeping our nation from unifying and going forward and working together. And I think a lot of white Americans have opened their eyes to a lot of the racism just through the behavior of the GOP to our president. And I know you have a lot of policies that you talked about that, you know, can equal the playing field. But when you look at, say, I know Serena Fulton endorsed you, but when you look at Trayvon Martin, when you look at the polls, you see a big disparity between black people about how they feel about Trayvon Martin to how a lot of white America viewed that incident. And I wanted to know if you have, beyond your policies, if you have any ideas about how we can change people's hearts and minds to open, especially white America, to the issues of racism that persist in our country.
I think that's one of the most important questions that we all have to grapple with. And, you know, I gave a speech in Harlem about 10 days ago, and I said that I think it's very important for white people to understand our experience is not the experience of African Americans or the experience of Latinos. And it's time we do much more than we have to put ourselves in the minds and the hearts and the shoes of people like Trayvon Martin or like his mother, Sabrina Fulton. I know this is not easy, but I think it is the continuing challenge, the gap that exists between who we think we are and who we are. Yeah. And how we close that gap requires people to really be open to the experience that others go through. I've said to a lot of groups, predominantly, if not exclusively white groups, how would you feel if every time your son went out with his friends, you worried that he might not come home? How would you feel if you went to apply for a mortgage and you had the same financial ability as someone else and you were turned down? How would you feel if your child had asthma and had a 500% more likelihood of dying from asthma? How would you feel if you were an African American woman with breast cancer and you had a 40% higher rate of dying because you were diagnosed later? You can go down the list. And you've got to get people to start thinking about what life is like for others, and particularly in our society. White people, white Americans have to think about what the daily experience is for African Americans. And I'm hoping that that's a conversation that more and more people will be willing to have. And it's especially important among young people, but it's important for people of all ages. I do think that trying to have this conversation, which is something that is essential if we're going to be coming together instead of moving apart, can be done in a lot of different settings. A setting like this, a setting in a Sunday school class, a setting in a school cafeteria, a setting in an office conference room. People need to be willing to be honest with each other. I'm hoping that we will see more of that. And you know, it's one of the reasons why I have been raising the barriers that stand in the way of people, and including systemic racism. And I do hope to get the nomination, and whoever the Republicans nominate, I'm going to keep talking about it all through the general election, all the way into the White House, if I'm so fortunate enough to win, because it is still the biggest challenge we face, and I think we've made progress. The president has said we've certainly made progress. I agree with that. But there are still too many serious problems that have not yet been even acknowledged, let alone addressed. And we have to do that. And that needs everybody. Everybody needs to do that, but particularly white people. We bear a special burden to try to get this conversation going.
Just keep in mind,